nail down. Zach, Russell, and I breaking down pitchers for FanDuel and DraftKings tonight. A couple of top aces up top. You have Scherzer, Chris Sale going. Greinke makes his return. And then kind of after that, it's a little bit lackluster in my opinion. What do you guys feel about tonight's pitching slate?
Well, we have the Chad Ghoul, who is one of my favorite Halloween characters on the pitching slate. But in terms of pitching, yeah, I'd have to agree.
I actually like pitching today. I think there's a bunch of great mid-tier options to spend up on some of the big bats against the awful pitcher. So I'm actually a big fan of the pitching options today.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there's guys. I mean, I think Kenta Maeda price is probably the one that stands out to me the most. It's kind of one of the best options in the slate, just points per dollar wise. Diving into the first game here, we got the Indians and Nationals. Max Scherzer versus Trevor Bauer. Trevor Bauer's been a guy who's kind of off the rails of late, but obviously Max Scherzer still has that significant upside. But kind of a tough matchup there at home against Cleveland.
Yes. Well, I would say so. Scherzer obviously sort of been himself lately, with the strikeout rate and sort of dominating even good teams. So I'm okay with paying up for him in cash once again, even though it is the Indians that we're always seemingly afraid of nowadays. So I'm okay with paying up for him.
I personally don't like him in cash, even though he's a huge favorite. He gives up too many home runs for me for being a stud pitcher, and the Indians have been hitting the ball well. But for GPPs, of course, you got to look at him. He has the highest K upside of anybody on the board tonight.
Yeah, certainly. I think Scherzer, I mean, you look at that strikeout rate this year, obviously solid. I mean, you go on the slate, he does have the highest, over 30%. And you look at this Indians team, I mean, pretty solid against righties, obviously. Kind of been middle of the road of late over the last 2 weeks. I'm okay with him in GPPs. Cash, I think I'd rather kind of spin down to Sale or Maeda, personally. And on the other side, I'm not really looking to use Bauer against this Nationals offense that's clicking right now.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with that one. Even he is cheap, at least on DK, but yeah, I definitely agree there.
Yeah, I don't see how you use Bauer. There's way too many other cheap options that you can use.
Yeah, definitely. And Pirates and Padres next year. You got Chad Kuhl, Luis Perdomo. Pirates small favorites there, minus 135. Obviously, one of the top hard factors there in PNC. Chad Kuhl, I mean, 6,800 could be viable for a cheap SP2 option on DraftKings. I'm not really looking at him on FanDuel, just given it's a single pitcher site. But I'm okay. I think there could be a chance for a quality start and possibly a win there.
Meh. I made the joke about his name, but I'm not particularly interested in him. So, yeah, I'm not interested in this matchup actually in terms of pitching.
I actually think it's a good matchup for both pitchers. Cool, he is making his first start in a while, but I mean, it's the Padres. They have the second worst team WOBA and the second highest team strikeout rate. And he was pitching well before he got injured, so he's definitely worth the look. And Perdomo, with his ground ball rate, if he can stay out of his own head, he has as much talent as most pitchers in the league, and he's actually worth a great look on DraftKings at only 5,400.
Yeah, Perdomo's certainly interesting. I mean, coming off a start where, a decent start against Milwaukee, he was okay against Toronto. He's been kind of finding himself lately, and as you mentioned, I mean, the ground ball rate's solid. And this Pirates offense really hasn't been anything to kind of, jump all over about. So I'm okay with using those guys. Both kind of GPP options for me. I'm not really looking at either of those guys in cash.
Right.
Moving on to the next one here, you got the Rays and Blue Jays, Marco Estrada versus Drew Smyly. And Marco Estrada, I mean, he's a guy who I don't mind because of the matchup. I obviously wish the price tag was a little bit cheaper. But you do look at the Rays, I mean, the strikeout rate's very high against right-handed pitching, 24%, 21st in WOBA. Obviously, you expect a lot of run support on the back end there, given that Drew Smyly's pitching against this Jays team. I'm okay with Estrada, but he's just one of those guys where he's not a must-play to me. I kind of rather spin up or kind of spin down.
Yeah, I like him in tournaments a little bit, but certainly not a cash option for me. But I do think there is some extra upside tonight based on the Rays and their strikeout rate versus righties. So, yeah, definitely. And, I mean, they are big favorites, so solid tournament guy.
Yeah, I agree. On FanDuel, I would play him, but on DraftKings at over 11,000, there's no way I'm touching him on DraftKings. But FanDuel, he's a solid price at only 8,700 as a huge favorite. So I definitely could see using him in a GPP.
Yeah, certainly. The price difference from site to site's, definitely worth mentioning. And on the other side, then I know you and Isaac were joking around before, Drew Smiley against this Blue Jays. Kind of expect him to get hammered tonight.
I mean, yeah, that's gonna be ugly, I think.
I don't see there's how the Jays have disappointed a lot this year, but they have to. If they disappoint this year, I'm done. This game, I'm done with them for the rest of the season.
Yeah, I mean it's something that the Jays have been disappointing against lefties at times, but given the fact Smiley, I mean 1.66 home runs per nine this year, you expect a lot of balls to kind of fly out there in Toronto.
Definitely.
Yankees and Red Sox here next. Rick Porcello versus Luis Severino. Rick Porcello, big favorite there, minus 182. He's back at home at Fenway where he's been solid all year long. 9,900 on DraftKings. I don't mind him if you want to pay up in cash. He's a fine option. I'll probably stick to other guys in the GPPs just because I feel like I can get some of his production for cheaper. But I do feel like he's a safe option against this bad Yankees lineup.
Yeah, they really are bad. In terms of Porcello, obviously he has had some downside this year, but I think this is a decent tournament upside type of move, where the Yankees have had a few good games since they traded Beltran, but overall they've just been getting shut down. So I kind of expect that to happen against a solid arm like Porcello.
I agree that you can pay for him up in cash, but in GPPs, he doesn't strike out enough batters. The Yankees, they don't hit the ball well, but they don't really strike out either. So I don't see using him in tournaments. I just don't see the K upside. But in cash games, he's consistent at home. The Yankees stink. You can definitely play him.
Yeah, certainly. And Severino on the other side. I know the Red Sox offense has been struggling. I mean, that West Coast trip was an indication that, I think they're kind of regressing a little bit. But against a pitcher like Severino, I'm not really looking to use or kind of pick on this offense with them.
No, definitely not.
Yeah, he's a hard pass for me. There's no way I'm playing him.
Yeah. Giants and Marlins next year. You got Tom Kohler versus Matt Moore. Matt Moore making his first start with the Giants. This one's kind of a wash for me. I mean, two kind of average arms. I'm not really intrigued with either of these guys, especially against teams that don't strike out a ton, the Marlins and the Giants. It's just kind of a game where I'm looking to fade pitchers.
Yeah, unfortunately, I think we want to look at these guys and see some tournament area somewhere, but I don't really see it tonight. I kind of like both of these offenses.
Yeah, originally I was a Matt Moore fan looking at him because he has been pitching consistent, and this is actually his second start with the Giants. And he pitched pretty well in his first start with them. But the more I look at the Marlins against left-hander pitching, there's no way I can play Moore, and I'm not touching Kohler. So it's an easy pass for me.
Yeah, definitely. I think just given the fact that these offenses don't really allow a ton of upside, and I mean, you got Brandon Crawford, who's the new hits king with 7 last night. You got to watch out for him.
Oh boy.
Diamondbacks and Mets. Next one here, Steven Matz versus Zach Greinke. Greinke coming back and making his start. Obviously, he draws a pretty favorable matchup. Curious to see just kind of how he is coming off the DL. He could be kind of a sneaky guy just because he is among some of the top-priced guys and obviously drawing a friendly matchup against the Mets, especially on the road where he's been solid this year. I'm okay with GPPs unless I see something where he's only on a certain limit of pitch count, but at the moment I don't see anything like that.
Yeah, I like him as a tournament guy, even at 11 on DK. But at the same time, there is that downside. I mean, we've seen how guys look when they pitch injured this year. It's kind of rough. Even the guy on the opposite side of him there, Matz. So it's tough to trust, but in a tournament, I could definitely throw a gamble at him.
Yeah, I actually just wrote out Greinke for the cheat sheets, and I like him in tournaments because he's pitched well on the road. The Mets aren't a very good offense, but I had the same concern as Jason, whether he's going to be on a pitch count. Even if they don't say he's going to be on a pitch count, I think after they spent all that money on him, they're going to play it easy on him. So if you want to take a flyer, I have no problem with it, but you just got to be aware that he might not only pitch 5 innings today.
Yeah, certainly, and that's the one down concern with him. And on the other side, I mean, Mats is going to have a tough matchup against the Diamondbacks, who are a good team against lefties. There are quite a few right-handed bats. Mats quite hasn't looked like his usual self. I mean, he's been okay, quality start after quality start, but he's not really missing a ton of bats. And obviously, coming off a bad start against the Yankees, allowed 10 hits to the Rockies at home. I'm kind of just staying away. I'm kind of off the Mats train for a while.
The Mats train. That's gonna be a boring train. Yeah, no, I agree. It's a tough lineup for him, and certainly hasn't shown us that upside that we're looking for from a normal Steven Matz. So, yeah, definitely a fade.
Yeah, I'm not going with Mats. I actually like the Diamondbacks hitters tonight, so there's no way I'm playing Mats, especially at his price. He's ridiculous compared to some of the other players.
Yeah, certainly. And you get Cubs and Angels next year. Cubs monster favorites, 235. John Lackey taking on Jared Weaver. Jared Weaver, not really a guy I'm looking to use, not a guy I'm ever looking to use. John Lackey, I mean, you look at this Angels offense, pretty middle of the road. At home, big favorite. I'm kind of okay with using Lackey as a cash game option. I like his price a little bit more on FanDuel at 8,700. I think he's one of those not quite priced up guys that I don't mind using as an SP2 or even as an SP1.
Man, I thought you were gonna be with me on Jared Weaver and Cash, but I guess not. No, I'm kidding. John Lackey, yeah, definitely an interesting cash guy. 8,700 on FanDuel, so you do like that. I mean, he's going to get a lot of run support, and as we talk about every day, I mean, Cole Calhoun has kind of even been struggling of late. So Mike Trout, and that's it. So I think he can get through this lineup if he can. Should be in for a win.
I like Lackey a lot in cash games. He's pitching at Wrigley where he pitches great compared to on the road. The Angels lineup, if you take Trout out that lineup, it's a AAA team at best.
Yeah.
So I really like Lackey. He's a huge favorite. He's very affordable. I'm not really on him on DraftKings where the strikeouts are more of what I'm looking for because the Angels don't strike out a lot. But on FanDuel, where he's going to get the win, he's going to get the 12 points, he's going to pitch deep in the game without giving up a ton of runs. He's a great option. He's one of my favorites.
Yeah, certainly. And you look at Lackey, I mean, he had that stretch earlier in the season where he was pitching poorly. I mean, he's kind of turned it around here of late against some pretty good offenses. So I'm definitely okay with using him. And I think on the other side, I mean, you look at Weaver, we've been joking around that he should get a ton of run support and kind of pick up the W there.
For sure.
Brewers and Braves next year, you got Tyrell Jenkins versus Willie Peralta. And Willie Peralta is probably one of the few pitchers who can make a Brave stack actually look good. I'm staying far away from these pitchers in Miller Park, just kind of two bad right-handers and two offenses that are actually kind of playing well right now.
Yeah, totally with you on that one. You kind of just look at Peralta and any upside. If any pitcher has any upside against the Braves, you're looking at him pretty hard. But there's not a narrative to spin here. I think we just stay away from both these guys.
Yeah, even at 4,000 on DraftKings, I can't use Peralta. Just stay away from that game and just move on.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, look at Peralta. I mean, if he was even doing well in the minors when he went down, I'd be okay. Maybe he had over a 6 ERA in AAA when he was down. So obviously he wasn't performing well, and this is just solely because of the injury situation to Guerra where he came back up. So yeah, definitely an easy fade. Astros and Twins next. You got Mike Fiers versus Hector Santiago. Hector Santiago, I mean, with the Twins, kind of intriguing in this matchup. Obviously, kind of a high-risk, high-reward situation. Houston's not that great against lefties. And really, I mean, you get around guys like Gaddis, Springer, and Altuve. I mean, Correa hasn't really looked good against lefties this year. They have a high strikeout rate. He could be kind of a cheap, intriguing GPP option with some strikeout upside, but obviously there really is a low floor with him.
Maybe like a second tier tournament guy for me. I still kind of like these Astros bats, but yeah, like you mentioned, the strikeout rate's up there. But yeah, I think this would be a night for me to use some Astros, at least on FanDuel.
Yeah, I can't use any pitcher in that game. I'm a big fan of the Astros bat. Santiago gets too many home runs up to right-handed hitters. even though the Astros are boomer and bust, they still got power. So I think he gives up a couple of home runs. I could just skip that game. There's too many different options for me.
Yeah, and Fire's on the other side. I mean, obviously cheap as well, but I like the Twins bats against him.
Yeah.
And in that ballpark, I mean, Target Field's not the greatest pitcher's park during the summertime. It actually plays well to the hitters.
Yeah, and he's got to face Joe DiMaggio tonight and Max Kepler, so you
Yeah,
know,
yeah. I mean, Max Kepler is, the
yeah,
second coming.
yeah, you got to be careful when he's in the lineup opposite you, you know.
White Sox and Royals, you got Chris Sale, Edison Volquez. Small favor for the White Sox, minus 118 on the road. Chris Sale's been a guy who's pitching really well. I'm definitely okay with using him in all formats against the Royals team. That's middle of the road against lefties. I mean, they're kind of nothing special. And you look at that lineup, there really isn't a ton there. I know they did get Lorenzo Cain back recently, but I'm fine with Sale using him really in any format.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, there has been some disappointing starts, and I feel like I've started him on more than one disappointing start this year. But I think this is a good sort of floor game. Not necessarily a ceiling type of matchup against the Royals, but I think he's definitely a cash option at least on FanDuel at 10-6.
Yeah, I think if you're paying above 10 for a pitcher, then Sale's the one you want. He's been pitching really well deep into games. In two of his last three starts, he's gone 8 innings. He's only given up, I think, his 4 runs total in his last three starts. And the Royals are not the team they were last year, so you can definitely pick on them with pitchers. And I think Sale's pitched well against them this season, so I think Sale's definitely he's my top. If you're going to spend up, he's my top pitcher.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, he has pitched well against KC this year. I mean, 15 strikeouts in 13 innings. Has picked up the win in one of those. I'm definitely okay with using him. FanDuel, I like his price a little bit more. 10-6 is just a little bit easier to build a lineup around him. But yeah, I'm a fan. And Volquez on the other side, not a guy who I'm looking to use, even though the White Sox offense really isn't that great.
Nah, yeah, I'm with you. It's just kind of, yeah. Yeah, it's all set. I'm all set with that.
Yeah, I don't like Volquez. He's too crazy for me. He can have good games, but he's a mental case, and I don't like mental cases for my pitchers.
Next game, we got the Reds and Cardinals. Mike Leake versus Brandon Finnegan. And this game, I mean, I kind of actually expect a few, I mean, really runs from both sides. I'm not really looking to use pitchers on either of these ones. I know Mike Leake is really cheap on DraftKings, 4,500. But the way he's been pitching of late, I mean, he kind of deserves that price. And I know obviously he came off a stretch where he faced San Diego and Milwaukee, but this is just kind of an indication that Leake is really your average arm, pitches to contact, and even against a team like the Reds, you can see that doesn't usually work. So for me, it's just kind of an easy fade. I know the cheap price tag's there, but
Yeah, six earned runs allowed in each of his last three starts. That's certainly not a positive indicator for tonight. Obviously, this Reds team a little weaker without Jay Bruce anymore, but I still like them enough. I think they are stackable, even though they are getting a little expensive in the middle of the order there. But I think we can still fire away with them and not really worry about Leak in terms of pitching.
I actually can make a case for Mike Leake on DraftKings at his price. If you look at his Sierra and his ground ball rate and his BABIP, it actually he hasn't pitched that bad. He just had really bad defense. If you're going to take a chance in GPPs at his price, I can make the case for him. I'm personally not doing it. I like the Reds tonight, but I can make the case. But Brandon Finnegan, he's actually a pitcher I love tonight. He's pitching lights out right now. He hasn't allowed a run in his last two starts, gone 6 innings. The Cardinals stink against left-handed hitters, and Finnegan shut them down both times this season. So Finnegan, at his price, is actually a great option.
yeah, Finnegan, I mean, 6,700 there on DraftKings. You look at his FanDuel price, I mean, cheap as well. And yeah, I mean, as you mentioned, the lefties, or the Cardinals really aren't that great against lefties. 25th in WOBA. I mean, obviously there are a few right-handed bats that he would worry about, but yeah, I mean, obviously deep GPP play, I'm certainly okay with it just due to that price tag.
I think that's a really good call, actually. In terms of sort of being contrarian. I don't think many people are going to be on him, obviously because of that Vegas line and everything. But yeah, no, obviously been pitching really well and against the Cardinals as well. So I like that.
Orioles and A's next. You got the Wade Miley show here in Baltimore, and then Zach Neal on the other side. Baltimore small favorites, -137. Obviously, this A's offense has been really lackluster. I'm a little bit worried about Miley getting through basically the front five there of Semien, Smolinski, Valencia, Davis, Butler. I mean, that's a tough group. I mean, who do hit lefties well. Wade Miley's really nothing special, kind of your average lefty. And I think if I was choosing a lefty at a cheap price tag, it's going to be with your guy, Zach Finnegan. I don't see myself really using Miley there or even using Neal on the other side.
Yeah, Miley did have that good Cubs start a few games ago, but other than that, he's been pretty mediocre to bad of late. I don't really see the upside there, and as you mentioned, I like the A's a little bit with Valencia and Semien.
Yeah, I hate Miley. I think they made a mistake trading for him. The young Cuban, I can't remember his name. I watched him pitch a bunch of times in the minors because I got season tickets to the Orioles AAA affiliate, and he's a great pitcher. I think it was a mistake to trade for Miley. The A's, they kill left-handed pitching. I love their first five, like Jason mentioned. I'm not playing Miley. And Neal, he's only available on DraftKings. I'm not even messing with him. We can skip him.
Yeah, definitely can. Tigers and Mariners next. You got Daniel Norris facing Wade LeBlanc. Two lefties on the hill, two cheap lefties. You look at this Mariners offense against left-handers. I mean, they're pretty average, 21st in WOBA. Do have a 21% strikeout rate. Norris, I mean, he's obviously a guy who does have some talent, just really hasn't quite been there yet. I think this is one where I'm just kind of staying away from.
Staying away, but interest is slightly peaked. Obviously, lefty against the Mariners is always going to be slightly intriguing, but not enough for me to play him tonight.
I'm not playing Norris. He's actually been a reverse splits pitcher, so he's got to deal with Cruz and Lee at home, and then he has to deal with the lefty bat. So I can't do it. There's no way I can play Norris. He struggles against all. He has a little bit of talent, but he's still young. So I'm going to skip him right now.
Yeah, definitely. And LeBlanc on the other side, I mean, this Tigers offense, a lot of right-handed bats there. And while they haven't been, tremendous against lefties this year, there's still a lot of talent there. And against Wade LeBlanc, I'm not really looking to exploit any sort of matchup.
Yeah, same.
I definitely agree.
Phillies and Dodgers, last game of the night. Dodgers -204 favorites. Kenta Maeda versus Vince Velasquez. And Maeda, for me, is my favorite cash game arm just because he is cheaper than the other options. I mean, you can save a couple grand from using a Sale or Scherzer, whoever you're looking up at top. Obviously, this Phillies offense, bad against righties, 28th in WOBA, 21% strikeout rate. And Maeda, I mean, solid arm, 24% strikeout rate. I love Maeda here.
Yeah, I think this one's pretty straightforward in terms of cash consideration on both sites. Obviously, this Phillies lineup hasn't done well against righties this year, so I think this is a pretty easy jump to cash here.
Yeah, I think if you're playing cash games, he has to be the first person in your lineup on both sides. He's too cheap. He's pitching well. The Phillies think he's a huge favorite. Just put him in and move on to your hitters.
I think that summed it up pretty well.
Yeah, no, it definitely did. He's just the guy. And Velasquez on the other side, I mean, he's a guy who's banged up. I mean, obviously there's some strikeout upside, but has a blister. Another day maybe, but not today. I'm not looking at him.
Right. I think if you like Vince Velasquez, it's cool. Just turn off the games tonight. Just, whatever. Play tomorrow or something.
Yeah, I can't see using him. The Dodgers are hitting the ball really well right now. They hit right-handers well. They don't even strike out enough for me for his one little bit of upside of his ability to strike batters out, and they don't do that enough for me.
And that's a scary lineup against righties now, or against lefties now, with Turner Seager and now Josh Reddick.
Yeah, I mean, putting Reddick in there kind of adds another lefty to an already pretty heavy lefty lineup for the Dodgers. So, yeah. Definitely one I'm staying away. So that's going to wrap things up with our pitcher nail down. Be sure to check out DaveFantasyCafe.com for our great tools and content.